How did you find love and all of those things?
Yeah. I even remember starting the work and being like, I wish I would have had this, before I met my person, because I could have been so much more, I don't know, specific and confident and authentic. It still really helped me through the year and a half engagement phase, which was really hard for me because I was so excited. This is probably the best year of my life because we got engaged, we got our dog, which Chester, he's kind of like Theo. He looks kind of like Theo. And we bought our dream house. But to my inner child, this was not the case. And I didn't really realize this at the time, right? I can only really see this looking back. My inner child was panicking as I got engaged because my two deepest fears in life have always been getting divorced or losing myself or someone I love to cancer early on, which, like, even just getting married, it's like, could I eventually lose this person? So both of these fears were bubbling up, and I didn't really know that these were all these inner child's feelings and thoughts back then, right? I just knew I felt completely emotionally unstable, even though my body felt so safe around Charlie. And I think this, again, just really speaks to the intelligence of our bodies and why I love human design. It's like sometimes your body knows more, and your mind either needs to catch up or it needs some reprogramming. This is really the part where I start to realize that this, again, inner child is looking outwards to confirm I made the right decision and I'm not going to get divorced. And ironically, these people around me are picking up on my projections.
This is a huge thing to talk about because we get this question a lot where people are in partnerships and then they start doing the TBM work and they're like, shoot, there maybe were things I would have called in before, or could I have a more aligned partner, and is it fully from my authenticity, and is this the right dynamic for me? Like, if I'm feeling this, does this mean it's wrong or I'm settling? And I think it can be really confusing, especially if you have those fears around divorce. If you have a fear of what's going to happen when this relationship goes to the next level. I think every time a relationship deepens, whether that's you decide to be officially boyfriend, girlfriend, you say I love you for the first time, you move in together for the first time, you get engaged, you get married, you have kids, like all of these life moments, I think are those moments where it's really important to attune to the inner child narrative because they're going to have a reaction at the closeness that's happening. So, how did you discern, is this the right situation for me? Is this my intuition telling me this isn't the right person and I should just jump ship and get out? Or do I just need to sit with my inner child because my body's literally telling me, like, I am safe? I know in my heart that this is the right person, but how do I remedy all these other things? How did you start to pull all of that apart?
I think the first thing is just having at least one or two friends that you just feel so safe with, and you can share all these doubts because the more that you suppress these doubts, and sometimes they're healthy, right? They kind of bubble up more. And I just remember one of my best friends saying to me when we were wedding dress shopping, like, Lexi, you've been like this since the beginning of college. Like, doubt is your biggest strength. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah. Because I, at one point, went through a little religious stint, and I was always the girl in the Christian group, like questioning and doubting. And that was actually how we became friends because we had these bigger philosophical questions. And so it was like, oh, yeah, that is me, right? That's authentic. The authentic Lexi does doubt. But basically, all of these fears pushed me to become the number one researcher. Like, I was like, we're going to be the most prepared couple in the world for marriage. And the first thing I did, actually, I've never heard of the word codependent before TBM. So through a podcast or something, I was introduced to the word codependent, and I ended up reading Codependent No More. And I basically learned I had codependent tendencies in most of my relationships. But I think my favorite question that I learned to ask myself is, what will you forsake? What will you give up for the sake of connection? Or where do you hide in life for the sake of connection? And I was subconsciously downplaying the love I was in with Charlie for the sake of belonging with my family and friends. This is because, again, it was me, my sister, and my mom against the world. It was, oh, we're independent. We don't need a man. That was the energy I felt like we grew up with. Additionally, looking back, I just had no expanders of anyone that had been married, still been like a leader or really involved in their circle of female friends and killing it in the workforce. And I wanted all three, but I just truly didn't know anyone that exemplified that for me. And again, we did a bunch of work. I had a life coach at the time, and she recommended that me and Charlie read The 7 Effective Strategies to a Successful Marriage by the Gottmans. I cannot recommend this book enough. If you're worried about your relationship, whether it's before marriage or after marriage, this will either affirm and blow away all your fears, what it did for me, and it will give you exercises to strengthen it even more. And so when I learned about the ways that I was contributing to anything that was problematic in our relationship, that created space for us to work on that together.
I think that's so beautiful that you were facing those fears head on instead of making a drastic decision one way or the other. You know, on one angle, you could have been like, okay, I'm just going to suppress all of it, not look at it, and then just get married. And the other end is you could be like, oh, fears, okay, I'm out, and then leave. But the answer so often is not, when people write in and have those questions about their relationship, it's not a go or stay. It's a sit with the muck, sit with what is in front of you right now, sit with those dynamics, work through them together, step through your fears of offending the other person, state what your needs are, share what's coming up for you, share the fears that are coming up for you. That's how you deepen that relationship. And that's how you can really tell, like, okay, is this the relationship that's going to stand the test of time with me and they're in it to win it, or we're not on the same page, and then you'll know. But I think so many times people avoid the actual work it
Yep.
takes together in a relationship. They just want, they checked all of my boxes, they're my full list. Even in the early dating phases, people are so antsy to say, is this my person or is this just a test? Let it play out. Stay present to each experience and let it play out and see what comes up for you. And I really feel, Lacey says this all the time, but all relationships in our life are mirrors for our own highest evolution, for our own highest growth, that are preparing us. The worst case scenario of you going in and doing that hard work with someone else is you evolve, regardless of what happens on the other side. So I just want to encourage anyone in relationships who may be at a sticking point or maybe in a hard time, or you're working through something, to keep going, to keep pulling back the layers, to have that accountability. Like you were saying, like, whoa, when I looked at my side of the street, I was like, okay, I gotta like change some stuff here and there, you know, really have those moments, because I think that's where it's all about.
And maybe that's the perfect transition to how, yeah, how I realized what I needed to own in the relationship. First of all, I just want to emphasize, even though I talked to my friends about the doubts, I talked to Charlie about all of my doubts. And him coming back being calm, cool, and collective was the best sign for me. He like wasn't even worried. It was like, and it was really in that moment where I realized, oh, would I feel this way no matter who I'm marrying? Like if I was delivered this perfect man in a box from above, would I still be worried? And it was like, yes. So it was like, okay, the fear is about marriage, not about Charlie. It has nothing to do with him. And so that really helped. But I think the other part is, again, I'm super extroverted. He's super introverted. I think some people were a little surprised by my choice in him, and sometimes would be maybe even triggered being around him because he can be really quiet and to himself. He's not the super outgoing Floridian that sometimes we're used to. And he's really artistic, and he also has really healthy boundaries. And so an example of this is we would go on like a family vacation with my family, and our family is super high energy, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., nonstop, no relaxation, constant girl chatter, like about makeup and hair. So it's kind of hard for a man to come in that's pretty quiet, pretty intellectual, and join in. And he would want to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes every day. And I didn't meditate back then, and I didn't understand the benefits. So instead of embracing him, I would get embarrassed and try to get him to assimilate with my family. We don't have time to meditate today. We have all this itinerary. And I would say really toxic things like, don't you love me enough to morph and be more like my family just so that they like you? And looking back, it was, of course, this like fear of rejection. I just wanted him to be accepted. I didn't know what it was like to have this male role in our girl dynamic. And it wasn't really until my husband was actually on the Brene Brown podcast that we started again together reading about Brene Brown. And I read about her definition of resentment, which just, I felt so seen. And it's basically if you have these feelings of I'm better than. And I was like, that's what I do in this relationship. I'm better than Charlie because I don't need to meditate all day or anytime during the day. I'm better than Charlie because we both worked a long day and I'm still cooking and cleaning and he's resting. And it was that moment of, oh, or are you just triggered that you would never give yourself permission to rest? You think you have to do all these things, but really we can find self-love after marriage. And I'm still learning every day how to love myself better and be my biggest cheerleader.
I love the examples you shared too, because I think they're so universal. Like you can plug and play that with any two behaviors in a relationship and in a dynamic. I think there also is a bit of the like Disney fairy tale. There's an idealized version of like, if it's true love, they will do anything
Yes.
for me. They will have no boundaries. They will transform whatever. They will help me clean when I want to clean. They will hang out with my parents and laugh all day long. It's a very unrealistic fantasy. If anyone is in the dreamer archetype of TBM blind spots, that's where you're going to find your thoughts about relationship. Even the discerner of just being so critical of wanting them to meet us where we are without any curiosity about where they are and what we can learn from where they are. And I think that is a normalized and also encouraged behavior, especially when there's like the meeting of the families where it's you should adopt to whatever family you're meeting and they're, you know, what they're doing. And there's a lot of self-neglect that happens in those interactions. And I think there's a lot of places for us all to evolve in them because traditionally it's like you meet the other family, you do whatever they do, you don't say anything, you show up to the events, whatever. But we're kind of in this time where we're exploring like, what do I need authentically to be my best self? And where do I need to have those settled boundaries? For him to be his best self, he needed those 20 minutes of meditation. And it's so funny because probably now you'd be like, I'm so impressed he took those 20 minutes of meditation. That's amazing. It's totally transformed because in seeing him honor his needs and his boundaries, it's inviting you to do the same for yourself when you're around his family. If they're doing something, maybe you want to be go, 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 and they're more in a rest mode. I don't know. I'm totally pulling a random example. But you can then take that to, okay, I planned a day for myself because I just love feeding off of that energy. Like, how do you honor yourself when you're with family that doesn't necessarily have the same things without completely people pleasing and becoming a version of yourself that you don't even recognize? I can definitely be guilty of that so much so where I'm like, I just want to fit in. I want to be easy. I don't want to be problematic. I want it to be like a fun time. And then the end of the day, you're like, did I do anything for myself? Did I just go along with what everyone wanted to do? And needing to take those pauses.
It's so funny you say that because to your point, now I actually meditate twice a day, every day. Like he's had that influence on me. And then even vice versa. Again, he's one thing we have again similar is that we're both generally very intellectual, but again, he's born and raised in Boston, a lot of intellectual energy, and I'm pretty spiritual. And I think it's because I quote unquote stepped out of the spiritual closet. I've embraced how much this work has helped me. Before, I think I would have been nervous to bring this stuff up in front of his family. And now I feel really comfortable doing that. They all make jokes and know who I am and love me for it. Both of us are just so much more authentically ourselves in each other's families. And I think we both feel really loved and accepted in both settings.